Hey guys, it's your average middle-aged American back again with another reaction video. This one is on the Biltmore estate. This was owned by the Vanderbilts back in the day. This is in America. I've actually been here several times. It's an amazing place. I just did a video on German castles, so it made me think of the Biltmore, and I found this video pretty quickly. I have not seen this video, so we can go through it together, and I'll throw my comments in there as needed. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, please do so. Doesn't cost you anything, helps me out tremendously.
During the height of the Gilded Age, George Washington Vanderbilt set out to build the largest house to ever be constructed in the United States. Hi everyone, Ken here. Welcome to this house. George had been born into one of, if not the greatest of fortunes the New World had ever seen. He purchased 195 square miles of land near Asheville, North Carolina, and hired prominent landscape architects.
195 square miles of land. 195 square miles is 125,000 acres. And an American acre, my house is on a quarter of an acre. And I have a yard in the front, a yard in the back, and a small area, yard, whatever you want to call it, on each side of my home. And that's on a quarter of an acre. A really nice section of land in a major city would be an acre. An acre is a nice chunk of land. I mean, you could build a 10,000 square foot house on an acre with no problem and not look silly. 195 square miles is 125,000 acres. So it's literally a million. Is that right? 250? No, 500,000 normal lot sizes for a normal house in America. So somewhere between, so let's call it 250,000 and 500,000 normal houses worth of land. It's crazy. It really is unbelievable. When you're at the top of it, as far as you can physically see, all the way around was his property.
Architect Frederick Law Olmsted to not only plan the viewshed and formal gardens, but to make the estate self-sustaining by including dozens of farms. While Olmsted was hard at work creating the perfect landscape, George hired famed Gilded Age architect Richard Morris Hunt to design a mansion the likes of which the country had never seen before.
The landscape architect, if I remember correctly, did Central Park in New York. Could be wrong. Feel free to Google it and call me out if it is wrong, but it seems to be something I remember.
When it was all said and done, the mansion, which would be named the Biltmore, would boast over 178,000 square feet, with 250 rooms, 35 bedrooms, and 43 bathrooms. Just to give you an idea of the sheer size, if you were to lay out the rooms on one level, they would cover more than 4 acres of floor space. The 4-story mega mansion was planned to be nestled in the hills, becoming part of the ridgeline. Construction started in 1889 and stretched on for 6 years, with over 1,000 workers laboring every day on site. The brick walls were reinforced with a steel frame, and the facade was clad in Indiana limestone, which was brought to the property by way of a private railroad. Entering the home through the vestibule, we arrive in the main hall, clad in limestone and set at larger-than-life proportions. To the side, natural light penetrates the deep interiors through the Winter Garden's glass-paned ceiling. And just beyond this space, we will find the largest room in the house, the banquet.
This banquet room is unbelievable in person. You can't grasp how big this room is. It's 3 or 4 stories high, and the fireplace, you can just walk into the fireplace. That's how big it is. That's how tall it is. The opening alone is like 6-7 feet tall. I mean, it's just insane. And the table holds like 60 people or something. I mean, it's mind-boggling, and it's so beautiful. Everything in this house is so beautiful, and it's mind-boggling about it is really the part that it's so modern back then. You know, most people didn't even have like indoor plumbing, you know, and he's got 40 bathrooms or whatever. I don't. I'll tell you, if they don't show things that I know, I'll talk about them. Otherwise, I don't want to repeat everything the guy's going to say. But the banquet room is just, you talk about making an impression. You know, if you're having a formal dinner or something, that room is unbelievable. You know, back then people would come. You know, you didn't come for dinner. You would come for like a month, and you would, you know, because it was so hard to travel back then. So when you came, when you went somewhere with your servant or servants, then you would stay for weeks or months. It's just, I can't, I mean, I could talk about it for 3 days. The place is just unbelievable.
Tall. From end to end, it measures 72 feet long with barrel vaulted ceilings soaring 70 feet overhead. When the table is
Yeah, I mean, 70 feet is 6 stories. You could argue 7 stories, but let's call it 6 stories. So think about a 6 story tall dining room. Look at the people, how tall the people are, and then look at the opening of the fireplace. It's just unbelievable.
assembled with its many leaves, it can comfortably accommodate 64 dinner guests in front of the triple fireplace, finished out with intricate, figurative relief work. On the opposite wall, a built-in pipe organ was meant to bellow, echoing live music through the mansion's cavernous halls. Though this is not where the Vanderbilts would have dined when they were not entertaining. Instead, they would have sat in the breakfast room towards the rear of the house, a more intimate space when compared to the banquet hall. While we are here, we can take a peek behind the scenes to find the kitchen and the pantry. Of course, a family living a life of unfathomable luxury would not have prepared their own meals. Their live-in staff would have catered to their every need. Cutting across the rear of the house, we will pass the breakfast room into the salon, decorated with antique European furnishings, which George had collected while the Biltmore was being constructed. This will lead us into the music room, clad in half-height oak paneling below hand-stenciled beams running along the ceiling. From here we will dodge the main hall and explore the other wing of the house, making our way into the gallery, which stretches 90 feet from end to end, with a collection of centuries-old Flemish tapestries. The gallery terminates on the library, housing.
The thing about that gallery is 30 meters long. Just like a big open. It's almost like if you walk into a lobby of a 5-star hotel. You know, they just have that giant open space. It's just the same way. And those tapestries are priceless. I mean, they're used to be, I don't know, I think they must have changed it, but it used to not even be able to take pictures inside the Biltmore because they were worried about um, the flash photography and stuff affecting things. And I mean, everything in here is all antique, everything. So they, you know, the furniture, the paintings, everything is priceless. It's all, you know, it could be worth as much as the whole place. But the technology, if they don't get to the technology part, that's what really amazed me. I'll tell you about technology at the end. It was mind-boggling. I've taken roof tours, attic tour, or basement tours, you know, electrical tours. I've taken all kinds of tours in this place. I've been there, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 times. And the only time I haven't been there is at Christmas, which is supposed to be unbelievable because they decorate everything. They've got these, you know, 50, 60-foot Christmas trees, and it's just unbelievably beautiful. But they've built a hotel on the property, and they have a winery and everything. So, it could take you, I mean, you could spend all day there. You could spend 2 days there just checking out someone's house. I mean, think about how crazy that is.
Over 10,000 volumes on its shelves. It is clad in walnut panels and designed in the Baroque style, even featuring a ceiling mural which had been stripped from a building in Italy and reinstalled intact. A true marvel of not only art, but logistics for accomplishing such a feat. The billiards room, clad in oak paneling below a dazzling array of artisan plasterwork on the ceiling, offers a retreat for George Vanderbilt's male friends through the hidden passage on the back wall. This leads to the smoking room, and eventually to the bachelor wing, where single gentlemen guests would have been sequestered away from the ladies of the house. Now we can begin making our way up the grand, cantilevered staircase.
So even like the picture of that billiard room is 3 times the size it looked in that picture. There's 2 billiard tables. There's a regular pool table and a billiard table, or at least there used to be. So everything is, you can't grasp the scale, in a video like this. It's mind-boggling. The stairs are like cantilever. There's no support. And it's like 5 floors. And they're like limestone. I mean, it's just the architecture, the technology. It's obviously the place is beautiful, but you can't grasp the engineering behind all this stuff. It really is amazing.
Rotating around a double-hung chandelier, which has been suspended from an ornate, rib-vaulted medallion on the ceiling. The iron balustrade seamlessly curves with the steps and is capped off by a wood handrail, adding just the right amount of warmth to the stone atrium. Up here we will find the bedrooms of both George and his wife Edith. First we will explore George's room, finished out with a painted cornice above a dentelated plate rail. All of the furnishings are upholstered in a striking red and paired with antique wooden furniture. This opens into the oak sitting room, which adjoins to Edith's room on the other end, providing a private retreat for the couple. Edith's bedroom is the grandest bedroom in the house, with gold walls and painted millwork. It was finished out in the Louis XV style, with only the finest and most expensive furnishings to spoil her. We can continue up the back staircase towards the 3rd floor where guests would have stayed. In the 3rd floor's living hall, we can imagine one of the many resident musicians playing songs in the morning to gently wake up guests from their slumber. We will skip the 4th floor as it was reserved for staff and wind our way down to the basement. Down here we will find an indoor pool, once again, illuminated.
Think about that. Most people didn't have indoor toilets or even indoor plumbing. Even maybe a sink, or maybe they've got a crank to a well or something. This guy had an indoor swimming pool. And that's not all. We'll see what else they show, but just think about the luxury. When they built the house, they literally ran railroad tracks all the way up to the house so that they could get all their deliveries through the railroad system. So he had a private railroad tracks brought all the way up to the house that went all the way, to the normal railroad tracks that were being built across the country. You just can't even grasp how much land there is. And he sold most of, well, he didn't, but they sold most of it off, the land. So it was even, it was maybe 20 or 30 times as large as it is now. And it still takes you, it's got to be at least a mile or 2 from the front gate to the house. Maybe more. It's amazing.
Illuminated with electric lights. And after making our way through the stone tunnels, we will find more amenities, such as a gymnasium boasting the best workout equipment that money could buy in the late 1800s. The Biltmore passed down through the family over the generations, eventually being reduced to rest on only 8,000 of its original acres. In the modern day, the Biltmore remains privately owned by George's descendants and is open to the public as a house museum, where over 100,000 people venture annually to admire the height of architecture and landscaping from the bygone era of America's Gilded Age. If you have ever visited, I would love to read about your experience down below in the comments section.
All right, I'll give you a few things that I'm sure he didn't overlook. I'm sure he was just trying to keep the video short. That's not really something I worry about. Okay, first of all, in addition to the indoor swimming pool in the gymnasium, there's a whole locker room place for, that would be like a locker room in a gym, in a regular gym, or a golf club. Then he has an indoor bowling alley. So I believe there's two lanes, if I remember it correctly, of a bowling alley in a house that was built in the 1800s. So he has a bowling alley. He has a indoor swimming pool. They have a Halloween room. The kids painted, that's got all Halloween decorations in it. There's like half of the bedrooms, or maybe even more, probably more, have en suites. They're they're en suites with their own bathroom, a tub and a sink and a toilet and everything. So think about that. In the 1800s, your guests have their own bathroom attached to their giant room. They have an electrical system that was designed by Edison himself. Like Edison, when you go to the electric room in that place, it's all laid out and it's all Edison and Company or whatever. There's a pointer system. See if I can explain this. So imagine a box in different rooms and it has a whole bunch of needles, right? You'd have these buzzers in each room, like maybe under the dining room table. So you'd hit it with your foot or whatever, and the pointers would point for the servants to know what room to go to. Think about that in the 1800s. So you could literally buzz your servants without ringing a bell or without screaming or whatever. You just hit a buzzer, and these pointers would, and it would tell you, go 2 floors this way or whatever. I don't remember if it actually labeled the room or if it just gave you the directions, but it was a paging system. And then all the clocks in the house are all wired together so that they all have the exact same time to the second. So that you don't have, any, it's just like a railroad system. So you don't have any, I think he was in the railroad business. He was either in the railroad business or the ferry business or both. He was in the transportation business, I'm pretty sure. So, you're in the 1800s, you're in a 175,000 square foot house. The average house in the UK is 1,000 square feet. The average house in America is a little over 2,000 square feet. This is 175,000 square feet. It's insane. There's the gardens, which you didn't really hit on much. There's a whole, they have the manicured gardens, with the mazes and it's just, it's unbelievable. If you're ever in North Carolina and you get a chance to go to the Biltmore, you really need to go. I don't, you could have seen the biggest, most amazing castles in the world. I'm not saying this is better than that or anything like that, but it's different because of the ingenuity and the technology and the engineering. Because I mean, he did a great job. It's a great video. Don't get me wrong, but there is just so much to talk about this. So I'll leave that to the next video. And if you're new to my channel, it's anything and everything interests me as an average middle-aged American. That includes castles, cathedrals, Europe, America, watches, cars, home improvements, gearing up for retirement, you name it. If it interests me, it's going to be on my channel. Right now, we're focusing on travel, United States and Europe mostly. Wife and I plan to do some traveling, so trying to get as much information as I can. Great discussions in our comment sections about different cultures and differences between America and Europe. So I appreciate if you subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything. Helps me out a lot. Until next time, take care of yourself. I will see you soon. I appreciate you. Take care.